I will be honest, I did not know wildlife rehabilitation existed as a field. I was a college student. I was hunting around mostly for shelter work. I did a little bit of volunteering. I did a little bit of Googling of, oh, maybe I want to be a vet. Maybe I want to be a zookeeper. I don't know. So I go through Google and I see an internship opportunity pop up for Fox Valley Wildlife Center. And I went, I have literally never heard of that in my life. What is that? So I go in, I delve a little deeper. I reach out to them about an internship, and then they go like, hey, you have some animal experience. We just had an opening for a seasonal staff member position. Do you want to apply? And I went, oh yeah, okay. So I stuck around there for a little while. That was back in 2015. So I kind of got started, and I came in one summer as a seasonal, and I came back the next summer as a seasonal, and I came back the following summer as a seasonal, and I found out that I just simply could not stay away from this place. I was so captured from the very moment that I stepped through those doors and saw like, oh, this is the coolest experience ever. And I just didn't know it was a field at all. There's not really one pathway to it. There's not a lot of college courses. They're starting to introduce more. They're starting to kind of regulate it, because there was this perception of wildlife rehab previously as, oh, like that's just a thing that, sometimes people will like do in their bathrooms. They'll like, oh, I found a squirrel, I'll keep it in the bathroom, I'll raise it, I'll let it go outside. And it took a really long time for it to become an actual formalized and recognized field. So I was really excited to, be a part of that, delved into education, going to symposiums, conferences, soaked up every ounce of knowledge that I possibly could about the thing. And then here I am, and I'm really fortunate that I am now in a position to oversee our rehab program with Anderson.
Yay!
All right, and then do we want to do a quick bio for Margaret real quick? Do you want to talk about some of what you do at the education program?
Welcome everyone. I'm so glad that you're here today to learn a little bit more, not only to see Wanda, who's our guest star as always, but to learn more about wildlife rehabilitation and coexisting with wildlife. I myself came in as a retired and love working with wild animals. We have wild animals that come into our backyard, and I'm learning more about the do's and the don'ts when wildlife comes in your backyard. I started out as a volunteer at the Wildlife Center, and had the opportunity last January, so almost a year ago, to start working on building out educational programs so that we could bring Molly and our education director Stephanie's knowledge to the community, to youth. We do school groups. We have all different types of educational programs so that we can better understand the wildlife around us, how to interact with them, coexist, but also other aspects of wildlife rehabilitation that you might not be aware of. So, including careers, which is great. So, very excited to do these programs with the experts.
Thank you. So with that, on the note of learning about wildlife and coexisting, I will go ahead and get started with our presentation. So the first thing that I wanted to kind of talk about was some of the misconceptions that we have about our local wildlife. And the funny thing about wildlife is the locality of it all. So, you go to the zoo, you see your red pandas, you see your meerkats, you see all these animals that, are smaller and so prevalent in some of these other areas around the world. And then you think about, Japan, they have raccoons in zoos because they're so novel and different. Whereas with us, we're like, oh, those raccoons in the trash again. So it's one of those things where, because we are interacting with them on such a regular basis, they're sharing a lot of our human spaces, that sometimes they can you can just put on your blinders and go about your day, and sometimes they even delve into that sort of nuisance territory of like, oh, this animal's inconveniencing me at the moment. So that can result in a lot of misconceptions about these animals. So I'm going to go kind of down the list here as far as some of the most commonly misunderstood animals that we're working with on a regular basis. Bats are kind of those number one. You see it a lot in the news that, all these bat diseases, and of course when they get into people's homes and all of that, it can be like a huge circus of a situation for anybody that has ever had a bat enter their home. It is definitely a whole, you're calling like 17 different people. It throws your day a little bit. But they, as a result, are seen as really dangerous. There's a lot of myths surrounding them, being like bloodsuckers and all of these things where, of course, you think of Dracula when you think of bats a lot of the time. So they can be villainized a little bit. Coyotes are another one. They can oftentimes be seen as a danger to our pets, our children, and are oftentimes, if you see one of them, they're a little bit larger than a lot of the other animals we're working with and can be intimidating. If you see one when you're not expecting to, there's a little, oh, a coyote's here. Skunks are another one. Usually you associate skunks with the smell. So usually that's not one that a lot of people jump to, be particularly fond of because of that sensory association with them. Possums are one that are oftentimes seen as, smelly, dirty, vicious. They can sometimes be mistaken as rabid or aggressive. Rabbits, anybody that has a backyard garden would probably be able to attest that, they can sometimes be a little bit mischievous. So they can have that association of like, oh, they ruined my garden, they ruined my landscaping, there was a nest in my backyard and, definitely inconvenienced that whole situation. And then raccoons. Raccoons are often seen as destructive trash raiders and attic invaders and are very likely to enter human spaces and, are seen as a pest for that reason. So I'm going to start with talking about the two that oftentimes do cause the strongest reaction, and that's going to be bats and coyotes. So bats, one of the most misunderstood animals, and I never want to downplay the severity of rabies as a disease, but the reality is that less than 1% of our bat population actually does get rabies. And of course, if they're entering human spaces, you do want to make sure you're being careful, taking that precaution. Rabies is not a disease you want to mess around with, but the reality is that over 99% of the population does not have rabies. But what they actually do is they provide a huge benefit to our ecosystem, and that is going to be largely in the form of insect control. They can actually eat up to 1,000 mosquitoes in just 1 hour, just one bat. So bats are really doing some great work. And of course, mosquitoes we're running into quite a bit more often than bats. And I don't know if there's any mosquito lovers in the audience here. I can't count myself among your number. My grace only goes so far. But a colony in your area means that you are seeing way fewer of those mosquitoes and all of that in your gardens, parks, and backyards. So if you're at all in a position to do so, we love promoting bat boxes. If you can promote a bat house in your area, you're gonna see those benefits. The citronella candles, I find are not particularly effective. Most bug sprays, I'm still getting bit, but having bats in the area. One of my family members does have a bat house in their area, never get bit in their backyard. It's my favorite. And obviously, because of all of these disease concerns, you're going to want to make sure, if you do get one in your house, call the proper authorities. Never handle one without gloves or protective equipment. And then, of course, if you're experiencing them in your attics, we do recommend getting all of those sealed professionally. Just the main thing that we want to promote here is exclusion and making sure they're not getting into those spaces in the first place. If you do find them in your attic, you want to make sure that any pups that you have are fully before you go ahead and get that set up. I'll give that a second. I'm loud, I'm not that loud. When they are coming into our areas, it's because there's easily accessible garbage. If there's cat food left out for feral cats and that sort of thing, that can be an attractant for them. But the reality is they do play a very, very vital role in controlling our rodent populations. and that helps balance our ecosystem so we're not getting too many of the, mice that can get out of control as far as their populations. And when those aren't properly managed, then that's when you see a lot of the upset of that ecosystem. And we see a lot of the detractors of that. Our ecosystem and our wild neighbors are absolutely going to see the negative impacts of that. So when you do see a coyote in your area, simple hazing is usually the best way to get them out of your yard, wherever you would rather not have them around. Simply stomping, clapping, literally pots and pans together. We will oftentimes recommend having sensor lights or floodlights so that if they do enter an area, it's just uncomfortable enough that they're like, oh, this is not actually, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in your space. I will move along. Good day, sir. So, making sure that of course you're supervising your pet, supervising all of your animals, and making sure that your kids are supervised too, but the reality is they really don't want to approach them unless they are desperate. So, both bats and coyotes remind us why, when we understand their role in nature, fear turns into respect. So they're not intruders, they're neighbors that have an important job. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple more of my favorites, and that's going to be skunks and possums, which are another pair of very misunderstood species. So skunks will bring a lot of balance to our ecosystem by eating insects and grubs. And when they dig small holes in lawns, that's actually going to help aerate your soil. So the best way to prevent any problems with interacting with these animals is by reducing any attractants, kind of similarly with our coyotes, making sure that our lawns are heavily watered and kept short to encourage lawns that are heavily watered and kept short, encourage grubs which attract and invite skunks in. So if you let your grass grow a little bit longer, that is going to be a pretty simple solution in order to keep them from entering your spaces in the first place. And possums, I could talk for a very, very, very long time about possums. So they are very, very gentle animals. So if you've ever encountered a possum in your backyard, you're probably gonna see one face, and that's
Yeah.
And they're gonna show you all of their teeth, and they don't want to use those teeth. That is their one and only form of defense, and they're gonna show you that they have it, and they'll use it if they are truly desperate. But working in rehab the last 10 years, I have been bit by exactly one possum, and it was 100% my mistake. And I'm handling them pretty much on a daily basis. And it happened, and I went, oh, I see what I did here. I ignored a lot of signs. So that was on me. But more often than not, they are incredibly gentle animals. They're one of those that when they do enter a captive space, they are so docile. And they're also huge contributors to reducing the tick population. They will eat up to 5,000 a season each. And they also will eat slugs, cockroaches, and sometimes even venomous snakes. They almost never get rabies, and that's because their body temperature is actually too low to properly facilitate the disease. So a lot of our common communicable diseases in other wildlife populations, possums just simply are not susceptible to. Doesn't mean there's a 0% chance, it means that the likelihood is pretty much as close to zero as you can get. And when they wander into a garage or a yard, kind of the best thing to do is nothing. They're so nomadic that as long as you aren't leaving food out for them or anything, they will simply pass on through. They don't like to stay in one place for too terribly long. They kind of just want to keep moving. They'll move to different food sources. And if they do have any area under a deck, a one-way door, super simple solution, just to kind of get them to move along their way. And finally, I'm going to talk about rabbits and raccoons. So like I mentioned, rabbits can be a source of frustration for gardeners, but they're a very essential prey species. So hawks, coyotes, owls, and foxes all rely on having a rabbit population as a major food source. Without them, many predator populations would collapse completely. Coexisting really comes down to protecting our gardens with low fencing or choosing plants that rabbits don't necessarily prefer. Low fencing can be even buried a little bit to prevent any digging underneath. Onion and lavender are both rabbit-resistant plants, they will have babies in the yard every once in a while. A lot of the time, anybody that has dogs in their yard will notice like, oh, there's a nest, don't know what to do, my dog's going to eat them. They actually move on quite quickly. So they fully mature at about 3 weeks old, and that's when they are fully leaving the nest. Obviously, they still have some growing to do past that point, but they do that independently. They don't need the nest anymore, they don't need mom anymore. So if you can provide some simple maintenance for those 2 to 3 weeks that they're in your yard, and then you can remove any fencing and kind of just let them go on their own, then that's usually a really simple solution that doesn't really necessitate them going into any sort of rehabilitation program or anything like that. And raccoons. So the word that I usually come up with first when I think of raccoons is mischievous. So they are very intelligent, very adaptable animals that help clean up carrion and waste. Yes, they can be mischievous when they're raiding our trash cans or nesting in our attics. The key here for raccoons is going to be prevention. So making sure that you have wildlife-proof garbage bins, trimming tree branches away from roofs, and sealing entry points before their baby season when they are looking for a safe place to raise their young. Raccoons really don't want conflict. They really just want easy meals and safe shelter. So we just want to make sure that we are preventing them from finding that in the wrong places and going to a slightly more appropriate spot for them to be raising their babies. So I'm going to talk for a little bit. I know I've mentioned a little bit about humane exclusion. So first of all, modifying the habitat. Most wildlife is going to become close because we are making it very easy for them, either intentionally or unintentionally. Food, shelter, water are kind of going to be the universals. Those are things that we want and we seek in our lives, and that's what they are going to be seeking as well. So if we are removing these, cleaning up fallen fruit, securing compost, trimming back overgrown brush, we are therefore making our spaces less appealing for them. Deterrence can be another really easy way. Like I said, lights, noise, motion-activated sprinklers, those sorts of things are a really easy way if there's a space that you don't want that animal, just to get them to move along. We never want to cause harm to the animals, but surprising them causes them to learn that, no, I'm good here. You can have that space. I'll be on my way. And the deterrents work best when they are combined with these other methods. It's usually not just like a one and done approach of, okay, the sprinkler, some animals will run away, some will tolerate it, making sure that we're combining these with other methods. So they don't want to live in an environment where they feel threatened. Shiny reflective tape, predator decoys, like I said, loud clapping, hazing, are great ways to reinforce that idea that the yard is not a safe resting space. These are especially helpful for geese and coyotes. One-way doors that I've mentioned a couple of times, super ingenious tools. Get them to leave and they cannot physically come back in. They work great for raccoons or possums that have moved into attics, garages, or under decks. Of course, obviously, like I mentioned before, you want to make sure there's no babies in there so that we're not unintentionally causing these animals to become orphaned. Sealing any other entry points, again, prevention is key. So once you are positive that those animals are out of that space, making sure that you're covering your chimneys, vents, and any gaps with durable materials like a metal mesh. Pointing out, so since raccoons are really great climbers, you do also want to make sure that any potential entry points, you want to make sure that there are not any large branches that are leading directly up to your roof, and making sure that we are getting those secure as well as our ground level areas. And then finally, fencing and barriers. It doesn't have to be big or ugly. Making sure that even a small garden fence can keep your rabbits out. Burying hardware cloth to keep skunks from digging, and using angled fencing that can deter deer. So we want to create gentle boundaries and not traps. So, with all of this said, losing all this stuff here.
Nice breeze. Yeah, that feels good. Yeah.
Listen, just enough of a breeze. It's delightful. I'm loving the breeze. All right, so with all of that said, I want to talk a little bit about the work that we do in wildlife rehabilitation. So a lot of these animals are coming through our door because of human-animal conflict. So whether that is if the animal was hit by a car, a pet cat got to the adults and now the babies are orphaned, things like fishing line left in the river can get tangled up in a goose's foot or can be swallowed by a turtle. A lot of these animals are coming through our door because of human action. And we get around about 3,000 animals every single year. And these are, largely speaking, a lot of them are orphans. And these are animals that were found after something happened to the parent, whether that is, sometimes it is predation, sometimes it's the natural course of events, but a lot of time these are very preventable events. And the unfortunate reality is, despite that we take as many animals as we do, we are not actually filling the need. There are a lot of animals that we do not have space to take in. We are at capacity every single summer. We take in as many as we feasibly can, which during our busy season is sometimes over 100 in a week. We've had really bad days where it's over 100 in a day. And those are very rough times. It's hard on the staff. We want to take in as many as we can and help as many of these animals as we can that have been impacted by all of these events, and so many of them feel so preventable. But the reality is we at this time really can't help them all. Resources are very limited, and just the pure manpower of it all to raise, especially baby animals. We're raising a lot of them until they are old enough to be fully independent. That's going to mean specialized formula. That is going to mean bottle feeding. That's going to mean daily care. So our goal is always going to be returning them back into the wild where they can do what they're supposed to do. We do sometimes, as you will learn in a moment, we do sometimes keep them in captivity. That's never our goal. Our goal is always to get them back out when it is appropriate to do so and when that animal is truly not releasable back out into the wild and would not be successful. Then we're looking at things like captivity, captive placement, education, ambassador opportunities. But our goal is always to have them out there. We want to make sure that we are still maintaining our biodiversity, restoring our natural balance, and making sure that these animals have a second chance to do what they were meant to do. And the key factors here, we're doing everything that we can as far as rehabilitation. One of those key factors is just going to be awareness and education. And just learning that, it's really important remembering to clean up my fishing line and my fishing hooks after I'm done, or preventing those animals from entering these spaces in the first place to prevent those conflicts from ever happening. And we are oftentimes working against the clock when these animals are coming into us. So to touch a little bit on the medical aspect of things, I've talked about orphans quite a bit, but they do come into us injured as well. And we are working against the clock because by the time somebody is able to find an animal, identify that it's injured, and if it is a point where you can safely pick it up and bring it somewhere, then it's not in a good place already. So that is a big challenge for us, is providing veterinary care for these animals when we have to play detective. They can't tell us what's wrong. There's not an owner that can say, he got into the trash, he ate something he wasn't supposed to eat. We have to get this animal and go, okay, the finder, what do you think happened? What did you see happen? A lot of the times it's nothing. A lot of the times I was on my morning walk and there was a squirrel here and here you go, fix it please. And then it's up to us to go, all right, let's what's wrong with you? What's going on? And we're really fortunate to have a really incredible team of very knowledgeable rehabilitators that, we can do some guesswork as far as this is probably what happened. But if we're looking purely at symptoms, we can say, okay, with this, and this, let's maybe do a blood test for this to rule out this. But most likely it's this, so we'll treat for this right now because time is of the essence here. We don't always have time to wait for blood work to come back or, play like, okay, let's give them a couple days of meds and see what happens, see if it fixes it. We sometimes have that luxury, but unfortunately often do not. And then I've mentioned seasonality a little bit as well. Not only are we facing baby season where animals are having more animals, but we're also looking at high activity levels for our adult animals. Usually in the winter, more often than not, they're gonna hole up. They're gonna just try to stick it out for the winter. But of course, during our summer months, they're more active. They're getting into a lot more of these conflicts just because they're out and about more. And some other challenges that we face in the rehab space are going to include, obviously quantity, severity, physical space, and money are going to be really, really big ones. Most wildlife rehabilitation facilities are not government sponsored or anything like that. Ours in particular runs 100% off of donations. So we are very limited in that factor as far as how much staff we can hire. It is a labor of love for a lot of us. Nobody gets into it for the money. And there's a lot of laws that we have to navigate as well. Bats and skunks, unfortunately, fully illegal to rehabilitate in the state of Illinois. If we get them in, we legally cannot do anything other than, unfortunately, euthanize them. So when we're fielding those calls about them, we're playing detective over the phone. And we're saying, if at all possible, we want this animal to not even come through the doors. We're gonna talk them through, okay, what is happening, what symptoms is it experiencing, so we can go, okay, like it doesn't sound like it's injured, it sounds like it, we're just in hibernation. If you can keep it in that space, if we can move it to a safer space and, kind of problem solve there so that they aren't coming through, because unfortunately there's legally not anything that we can do with them. So that is a huge challenge for us as well. And then of course we're always assessing that animal's quality of life while they're in our care. Sometimes unfortunately there's really nothing that we can do as far as, if they're coming in with lost limbs, that sort of thing. Unfortunately, we can't do wheelchairs for squirrels. So a lot of the time, that is a huge challenge for our staff of just weighing the everything, basically. Large animals, of course, are going to require a lot more space as well. So like for us, for example, we physically don't have the space to take in fawns or deer. And so, of course, another thing where we have to field that call and say, well, we can refer you to this place, this place, this place. Or if they're all full, how do you feel about a drive? And then illness is kind of one of the more obviously natural ones. The thing we always try to balance with wildlife rehabilitation is we don't want to play God, essentially. We understand that a lot of these situations are going to be fully natural events. We never want to interrupt a situation of predation. We never want, if an animal is properly eating one of its natural prey species, as much as that can tug on our heartstrings, we don't want to interrupt, because interrupting that could lead to a hungry raptor and a severely injured rabbit. So sometimes, while very well intentioned, jumping into situations like that can do a lot more harm than good. And illness is one of those. When they come in, obviously any animal that comes through our door, we are going to treat it and we are going to get it back outside. Even illness being as prevalent as it is in our ecosystem, we want to address that whenever possible. We're only human, it's only natural. And if we can prevent any unnecessary deaths that don't in turn harm a predator, we certainly want to do that as well. And while our spaces are continuing to grow and encroach into these animal areas, these conflicts are really only going to become more prevalent as time goes on. I'll get a little bit into what we're doing specifically with these animals. I won't touch on that for too terribly long. But I mentioned already, we're playing a little bit of detective when this animal first comes in, but that's certainly not the end of it, right? We are bringing them in for our care for minimum weeks at a time. It is very rare that an animal comes in, we look at it and we go, oh, you're just stunned, you're actually fine now, you can be on your way within 24 hours. Usually we're looking at minimum having this animal for 2 to 3 weeks while we are assessing for improvement. And if it's a simple injury, at the end of that couple of weeks, we can say, all right, farewell, my friend, it's been fun. Thank you for staying at the Hotel Anderson. A lot of the time, we're gonna be a little bit more, we're looking at months, more often than not. For our baby animals, our raccoons are the ones that stay with us the longest because they're with their mom the longest. They're learning how to raccoon. They're learning a lot more skills than, bless them, our possums are so simple. As long as they are a certain size, we let them go. That's 12 inches from the head to the base of the tail. And as long as they are about that size, they're good to go. Raccoons, we're assessing more for skill before we release them. And a lot of the time they're with us for at least 6 months at a time. Any that are coming in around this time of year, they're going to be kept over winter because they are not going to be fully independent by the time it is appropriate to release them. It gets too cold. It's not fair to release them in the middle of winter when resources are more scarce, and they have that much harder of a time getting their footing again. So the weather and all of that also plays a huge role in how long these animals stay with us. They also do some pre-release conditioning. We do have outdoor enclosures at our facility as well. So we keep them for at least a week, usually 2 weeks, just to make sure they are acclimatized to the temperature, making sure that they are eating, finding food the way they're supposed to in a larger space, and that they are doing all right without humans being constantly in their space like they are with our indoor enclosures. So, in summary of all of that, the one thing, if there's one single thing that I want you guys to take away from this today, that is prevention. So making sure that these animals are not getting into areas of conflict in the first place whenever we have the ability to control and manage that. We recommend against feeding the wildlife. Even bird feeders, that sort of thing, it creates almost like a little buffet situation. It can attract a lot of these predators because there's a high volume of prey. So, while it's definitely hard, a lot of us, I grew up with bird feeders galore. And it's kind of harder for me now to say like, oh, I see you all out there in my tree. I really want to go get you a suet block, but I'm not going to. And if you want those animals in your space, that's going to be a different thing. But if you're in a very close together neighborhood where you think those animals might get into conflict with your neighbors, it's usually best to just avoid those situations. You've seen my sign flopping around over here. Bread is going to be actually a really big challenge that we try to overcome as wildlife rehabilitators, because if you feed bread to a growing goose, it is actually going to cause a lot of detriment. So they get something called angel wing, and that's when they are receiving a lot of empty calories. They're not getting enough protein. Their nutritional intake is off, and they love bread. They will fully gorge themselves on bread. There it goes. And it will actually cause their wings to spread outward like that in something called angel wing, because they cannot physically sustain how their own wings are growing, because they're growing at an abnormal rate compared to the rest of their body. And that's not reversible. That's not something that unfortunately can be fixed in a rehabilitation setting. So making sure that we are avoiding doing that whenever possible. Outdoor cats can unfortunately cause a lot of damage as well. They can do some real numbers to our songbird population. So making sure that you have solutions like a catio or a safe space. I've seen a lot of people lately harness training their cats, which I think is super cool. My cats would never, but they don't go outside anyways. They have zero interest. Making sure that, again, using those exclusion methods to just try to keep your space safe and keep them safe by not entering your spaces in the first place. And with that, I'm sure a lot of you have been very anxiously awaiting my friend. So I am going to let Margaret and Nina give a little bit of a presentation of my special friend that I brought with me.
All right. So we're gonna, you might have questions while we put on the harness.
For sure, perfect. Yes, while they are getting her all set up, yes, you have a question.
Do you release the animals in the same area that they were picked up from?
So that is an amazing question, actually. So for adults, the question was, do we release animals in the same area that we got them from? And whenever possible, yes. So a lot of the adult animals in particular, we are going to try to return them to the area that they are comfortable and familiar with. With our baby animals, we try try to do the same because these are animals that are already going to be entering that ecosystem, that space. The things that we are navigating in those cases are again laws. So there's certain areas where we can't release them back, or they weren't in a safe area to begin with, or the animal needs to, we need to have the permission of the property owner to release them back on the property. So we, in addition to trying whenever we can to return them to their actual space where they were meant to be in the first place, we have a number of release sites that we have. So we will travel, a lot of them are, you know, an hour, 2 hours away from us, but we want to make sure that we are balancing and not releasing too many animals in one space. So if you have a large property that, you know, backs up to a forest preserve, you actually want to promote those animals in your area, you can absolutely sign up as a release site. And if you reach out to us and say, hey, I'd love for you to, like, you know, I live on 4 acres, I'd love for you to release squirrels in our yard, then we can absolutely accommodate that, and we do that very frequently.
Excellent. What can we do to help you guys?
So the main things, awareness, like I said, are going to be one of the biggest helpers as far as, you know, limiting that workload, making sure that these animals aren't getting into conflicts in the first place. Donations, we are 100% donation run on our wildlife side. Our adoptions from our domestic side do help fund those because our donations do not match our expenses far exceed the donations that we receive. So on the domestic side, our adoption fees will help cover the cost of a lot of our life-saving practices. So if you're in the market to donate, hit me up. Or to adopt, let me know.
And then for stuff, I mean, supplies,
yes,
bedding.
Any supplies. So we do every year in the spring, we have a baby shower. So that is when we are trying to collect as many of our supplies for the season as possible. That said, we do accept donations of supplies year-round as well. If you go to our website, we do have our Amazon wish list. There's simple items like, you know, paper towels we run through a lot, garbage bags we run through a lot. There are more specialized things that you can order online. Even the, you know, the possum formula, the raccoon formula, we purchase that, and that is something that you can get through Amazon as well.
All right.
So please be welcome to check it out.
Okay, thank
And
you.
On that front, the woodchuck is here, so I'm less.
All right, thank you, Molly. And, oh, there's Wanda.
This is Wanda.
Oh, oh, look at her.
We're gonna put a whole bunch of food down on the table so she can keep herself occupied.
Okay.
She's a groundhog, also known as a woodchuck, also known as a whistle pig. I don't think she likes that one that much.
She's sorry.
Or do
Yeah.
we'll
We'll
go.
see how it's not that we don't trust her, it's that she's fast.
She's fast and she loves to explore.
Yes.
So Wanda came to us. I'll give you a little bit about Wanda. She, as Nina mentioned, she's a woodchuck, groundhog, or what is it?
Whistle pig.
Whistle pig. Yep. She came to us with her siblings. Her mother was killed by a dog, and a family who saw this and found the babies over a couple days. Found the first group of 4 babies, and then found a couple more babies and brought them in. So Wanda's one of actually 6 siblings, and so just with any of our babies, any of our wildlife, we don't kiss and cuddle them, right? We want them to have a healthy fear of people, and so that they don't get close to us, so they have that healthy fear when they go in the wild to help them survive. So
She's feeling extra squirrely today, huh?
She's a ground squirrel.
yeah. So yes, she is. Groundhogs are part of the squirrel family. They're the largest one, between 5 and 10 pounds. But anyway, so her journey started with us. Her siblings had a healthy fear of the rehabbers, and as Molly walked through the rehabilitation process, the little babies grew under nurtured care, special diet, soft release, and on their release day, we opened the door to their crate, and all of the other siblings ran out into the forest and we're happy. And where do we find Wanda? We found Wanda underneath the truck.
Oh.
So we tried to put Wanda back several times, and unfortunately, Wanda just came running back to us each time. So the rehabber took her back, and we found Wanda back in the facility the next day, and Stephanie, one of our wildlife rehabbers, had Wanda out, and there's Wanda with her little arms reaching up to her like a little toddler. So she's just about 1.5 years old. As you can see, she's a little squirrely, right? Part of the squirrel family, get it? Anyway, but she has turned out to be excellent. She is very gentle. You'll see her, she's very energetic, but she loves to be with people. Loves to be with people, meaning she nests in the file cabinets, inside the Anderson office area. She can be fed. We have people meet and greet and visit her. She's been a star at our Groundhog Day. And so she is definitely a star, but a little squirrely, like I said, and she loves to climb. So
She doesn't scratch you.
Oh, yeah, she does.
her nails are cut,
Oh,
usually, like a cat.
Yes, yeah, we try to keep them trimmed
Yeah.
to prevent any.
Yeah.
But not all animals that can't be released for whatever reason are good candidates to be an ambassador. You know, really they have to, and it takes a lot of time working with animals to build that trust between people.
Yeah, so the thing with woodchucks too, they're very social naturally, right? So there is temperament involved in selecting an ambassador animal, and there's some that are a little bit more susceptible to habituation than others. Woodchucks, since they are so social, are very susceptible to just general habituation to humans, and therefore even then, not all woodchucks are good candidates. There's some personality. They're all individuals, but she has a really stellar temperament as far as handling, as far as just her general disposition, just being as sweet as she is. But there's a lot that goes into that as well. There's a lot of training that we do on the back end to be able to even have her out for programs like this, because this is not a natural situation for them at all. They're not domesticated in the way that a dog would probably just be sitting beside me the whole time if they were well trained. With her, the training is just to get her comfortable with situations like this.
Food usually calms her down.
Food helps.
Her favorite snacks, as you can see, some of them are out now with almonds, peanuts. She loves bananas, peaches, apricots is a new favorite. And she definitely likes her greens, such as kale. But definitely almonds are usually her favorite.
So typically, as far as lifespan, I don't know if you've got an exact number handy. My understanding's always been about 15 years.
It is.
Yes, perfect, nailed it. I want to make sure I wasn't mixing it up with a different one. So she's about a year and a half? Around about a year and a half, yeah.
Yeah. So the fun facts about groundhogs, and you'll see them for Groundhog Day, right? Is their hibernation. They are excellent hibernators. In fact, they dig tunnels. They can actually move about 700 pounds of dirt, and their tunnel systems can actually be around 30 feet long. They have specific tunnels to hold their food. They have a latrine section, as well as living quarters. In the winter, when they're in full hibernation, their heart rate slows from about 80 to 100 beats a minute to about 5 to 10 beats a minute. Their body temperature can actually lower to about 38, 40 degrees. And if you're looking at them in hibernation, they usually take about one breath every 5 minutes. So they are true hibernators, and when they come out, I think, you know, that's in the end where farmers and others were looking at signs of spring, look to the groundhog because they did do such a deep hibernation. Any questions about Wanda?
We got one over here.
Yeah.
What's their native range?
Their native range? I think they're throughout the United States.
Yeah, most of it. Yeah, they're pretty well adept to our winters. I'd have to look at the map to see exactly what their range is, but they're pretty prevalent throughout the U.S.
I've never seen one there.
I never have either. Oh yeah, there's a squirrel
Yeah,
right here.
squirrel's got two mamas.
There's her
How about a
cousin.
pig?
Yeah, there's her cousin. Yeah. She's so calm right now. Yes, she
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
Oh,
don't
she's
fall for it.
darling. Isn't she cute?
So, like I said, a lot of the time, that's when we start to explore. The question was, what do we do with animals that can't be released to the wild? So, captivity is one of those things. It's never the first thing we jump to. Since it's not natural for these animals to be in captivity, we do try to release them whenever possible. It's never our first goal. You know, it'd be easy for us to go, oh, this one's really cute, like what if we kept it? But we try to avoid that urge as much as possible to get them back out in the wild. If it's an animal that would not be happy in either a permanent placement or a sanctuary setting, sanctuaries, you know, they exist, they get full up really fast, and there's usually a lot more need for placement than there are places that can take them. And even then, it's not a natural environment for them, so they've got to have a temperament like Wanda's to even be mentally and emotionally happy in captivity. So we're assessing that quality of life as well. So if it's an animal that's too severely injured or would be miserable in a placement setting, you know, maybe its injuries aren't that bad, but it would suffer mentally in captivity, that's when we do unfortunately have to start looking at humane euthanasia as an option. And that is, of course, an unfortunate reality of wildlife rehab, is that is unfortunately something that's on the table a lot of the time.
If you do find an animal, South Elgin, do they take the
Yeah,
animal
so
to
we
your
actually,
farm?
so we briefly did our wildlife operations out of our South Elgin location. We have moved back to our original Fox Valley building in Elburn. So that is where we do all of our wildlife rehabilitation efforts, is our Elburn location. And if you do ever find an animal that needs help, definitely don't hesitate to give us a call. We're happy to walk you through it, walk you through how to pick them up safely. Sometimes they don't actually need to come in for rehab, and we can walk you through whatever situation it is that you're experiencing. But if not, you know, worst comes to worst, we can say like, oh, okay, bring it in. So, yeah, we're always happy to help out whenever we can.
Right. Thank you for doing the work to help the animals and all you do. It's
Thank
very
you.
good.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank